welcome to the Climate Emergency Podcast with me, George, the Energy Sector Specialist at Cheshire West and Chester Council, and our guest today, Mark Thompson, who volunteers as a community energy coach, providing advice to residents in the borough. There's been lots of discussion continuing in the media and on social media about energy prices increasing and the things that we can do to help cut our energy use. Today, we want to address some of the common myths around energy saving measures and look at things that actually work. Mark, have you seen any suggestions recently that you know just won't work, or maybe there are better ways of doing things?
Yes, so recently I've seen odd media stories of people, for example, thinking about using candles for either light or heat. So just to address that one, the calculations based on tariffs that we're likely to have with this new £2,500 announcement from a couple of days ago. So the tariffs we're expecting, even with those slightly higher tariffs than we have today, as a comparison, if you run an LED light bulb, it will cost you a penny to run an LED light bulb for 5 hours. A candle, and that's me shopping around to try and find the cheapest candles I can find online, it's about 10p to run a candle for 5 hours. So for lighting a room or using a candle in any way to replace a light bulb, it's 10 times the cost.
Well, Mark,
and actually an LED light bulb is a lot brighter as well.
that's really interesting. You would have thought candles, even providing the environment that they do, would be cheaper than running your lighting, particularly now.
Absolutely, because you can buy 50 tea candles for £8 and each one lasts 8 hours, and that all sounds fantastic. But when you do the sums, electricity, okay, it is expensive and it's going to get a little bit more expensive, but LED light bulbs are so good. They hardly use any energy, the modern LED light bulbs. So yeah, 1p for 5 hours. And if you're thinking about using a candle for heat, it works out about twice the cost. It's better to sit huddled around. If you want to huddle around a candle, you can huddle around a candle if you really want to, but it's cheaper to get an old-fashioned incandescent light bulb and huddle around that. It's about half the cost to run an old-fashioned light bulb than it is to run candles for light. So whether it's for light or for heat, candle is actually the wrong thing to do. It's the most expensive way of lighting, and it's the most expensive way of heating.
And you certainly get better light put out of a light bulb than you do a candle in any given room.
It's something like 40 times the amount of light. So a bog standard LED light will produce 40 times the amount of light you'll get from one little tea candle.
That's a certainly good place to start and good advice, both for staff and residents alike in Cheshire West and Chester. So, Mark, something else that we've heard about around heating, and some people have been leaving the heating on for pets, I believe.
Yes, it was quite a profound statistic. This I read the other day that 72% of homeowners who've got pets admit to leaving the heating on when they go out for the sake of the cat or the dog. The universal consensus amongst the veterinary industry and animal health people is that you shouldn't do that, and you don't need to do that. Cats and dogs have got higher blood temperatures than humans. So have chinchillas, so have rabbits. So for any of those pets, you do not need to leave the heating on or take any special measures. If you really feel you want to, you can get them a little igloo type bed, or you can get them a heated mat, which actually are very cheap to run on a per hour basis. But you absolutely do not need to leave the heating on. And actually, they're saying it's counterproductive, because if a dog or a cat is in a warm environment all the time, it actually encourages fleas and ticks and so on as well. And think about the history of cats and dogs and humans. For thousands of years, we've had domesticated cats and dogs, and they've always slept outside. It's only in the last few decades that we've sort of treated them to come inside. So they are not used to warm conditions historically. And let's say the recommendation of the veterinary world is do not leave your heating on for the sake of the cat or the dog. And also there are people who leave lights on and TVs on and radios on for company for the cat and the dog, and those things are also counterproductive because they actually can stress the animal out because they think you're around, but actually you're obviously not. So all that stuff is masses of information around that online. If you Google central heating and temperatures and cats and dogs, then there's plenty of really good independent advice. The only areas where obviously there are need to consider a pet's warmth, there are some animals like hamsters and guinea pigs, which actually feel heat a little bit like humans, so they like it to be similar sort of temperature to humans. So hamsters and guinea pigs, and obviously reptiles and other animals have got those particular needs as well. So for some animal pets, you do need to look after them in ways to protect their health. But for your typical cat and dog, you absolutely do not need to do anything different. Just do as you would for yourself, and the cat or dog will be absolutely fine.
That's great, Mark. And as someone with a background in zoology, I certainly appreciate the advice about looking after the animals in the right way. Now, linked to that is a myth around leaving the heat on low all day is better than turning it on and off.
Again, universal consensus of experts, and the physics backs this up as well theoretically, is that is the wrong thing to do. If you look at the Energy Saving Trust website or any independent website, it will tell you that isn't the right thing to do. And the reason is masonry and bricks and your walls, your exterior walls on a house are great at soaking up heat, and they're great at leaking it out, even if you've got cavity wall insulation. And if you leave the heating on all the time, you will warm all that lot up. And if you warm the skin of your house up, the warmer it is, the more it will leak heat. So it's much more efficient just to have your gas, your heating on in the morning or at the night as you need it for your comfort needs, which sort of gets the air warm in a room, but it doesn't give the building a chance to warm up. Because at the end of the day, all that matters is keeping you warm. So why warm the building up and let it and allow it to be more leaky when actually you just want a blast of warm air into the room to warm you in the morning, and obviously a longer duration of warm air into the rooms in the house and even to keep you warm. There's no need to warm the whole building, because you're talking hundreds of tons of concrete and brick, which will just leak out heat at a higher rate than it will do if you're just heating a bit in the morning and heating a bit in the evening. So absolutely the wrong thing to do. And there will be people who say, oh, but I do it and I think my bills are better, but I think there's a little bit of wishful thinking in that. So it is categorically the expert view from across the industry. That's not an efficient way of controlling your heating, and you will be spending more money than you of course really need to.
Absolutely, Mark. And I think that's really important, particularly with more people working from home over the past couple of years and going forward. I think there's also a case there maybe about just heating the space that you are in rather than the whole house and having the whole central heating on.
Yes.
So we could talk a little bit around the correct use of thermostatic radiator valves to aid with that, or localized heating. But we'll leave that for another energy topic, I think,
Sure.
and bring that in. There's been another couple of suggestions we've seen in the media recently about needing to spend money buying more energy efficient appliances to save money. I mean, this at one level, it sounds the right thing to do, but is it in terms of just getting through this winter?
I think if you look at any electrical product, and obviously the ones that are most energy hungry are ones that are used for heating things, cooking, and so on. They will all say they're efficient. So you have to be really careful that there are no really quick wins in terms of things that you might use to generate heat or cook on. There's a lot of hype around air fryers at the moment, but there is no evidence, there's no data that says it's actually a lower energy cost to use an air fryer to cook, a burger or a chop or whatever it might be, than to use other methods. And there are people I know who are sort of geeky types like me, who are actually starting to measure this stuff now and starting to gather data on the real energy costs of using some of these devices. So be very careful about leaping into a product that says it's the most energy efficient. So to give you two examples, well, certainly one example of that is these kettles that you can have, where you have a hot tap and a kettle that's underneath the kitchen worktop, which holds water at a high temperature. I've started to do some sums on that myself, and I'm actually measuring a neighbour's one at the moment, and from my early calculations, it looks like that they are twice as expensive to run, to make tea and coffee as a conventional kettle. So you have to be very careful. Obviously, you have to consider that buying any of those devices costs you money, and it's only really worth doing so if you're sure you're going to get a payback on it. So one of the other things is, it's a lot of hype also around microwaves are very efficient to cook in and so on, but not for everything. So to give you a lovely simple example, if you want to boil a cup of tea, the cheapest way to do it is in a kettle. And I know people who have measured other ways of boiling water to make a cup of tea, and a kettle is the cheapest and the simplest, of course, because it automatically switches off. And there is no such thing as one kettle being more efficient than another. All kettles are pretty much the same. They're all just about as efficient as each other. So basically, be careful. There's a very good group, Facebook group called Energy Saving Tips, which was started up in February by a husband and wife in Warrington, actually, which is growing very quickly. And on that are some really knowledgeable people who understand this stuff. So people are going onto that group saying, I'm thinking of buying this kettle, or I'm thinking of buying this, whatever it might be. Is this the most efficient thing to do compared to what I'm already doing? And there's some really good people on there who are giving some very considered and very well-grounded advice on whether that is the right thing to do or not, and to help people understand from somebody that really knows their stuff, what is the right decision for them. So yeah, energy saving products are it's very easy to think that something that says it's efficient is going to be better than what you've got, but maybe in most cases it isn't. The only thing that is, of course, very efficient to do is to replace lighting and traditional light bulbs with LED light bulbs. An LED light bulb uses 1/10 of the energy of a traditional light bulb, and roughly 1/10 of the energy of a halogen bulb as well. So if you're having traditional light bulbs, and if you have halogens, get rid of them now. Don't wait for them to fail. If you've got spares in the cupboard, throw them away. They are just tying you in to long-term energy costs. So that is the one quick win, if you like, is if you have halogens on your ceiling in your kitchen and you've got lots of them, they are costing you a lot of money. So that's the one electrical product I would say definitely do. Get rid of all of your traditional light bulbs and and replace them with LEDs, because they are really good and really cheap.
Thanks, Mark. That's some really great advice, and getting those energy calculations on products before you buy them is really useful, and looking at the energy labels that are attached to them as well. Most appliances now have to be marked to say what they anticipate an average use to be.
They do, and there's quite a lot of variation as well. I was in a white goods showroom area the other day, and even looking at washing machines, there's quite a variability in the amount of energy they use. You sort of expect that they're all good these days, but actually there's some really stark differences. It doesn't mean it's the right thing to replace your existing one with one of those. I would urge people not to replace their washing machine with a new one just because they think they're going to save money, because of course you're going to have to invest £200, £300, £400. So but if you are looking for a new appliance, whether it's a fridge, freezer, washing machine, whatever, do look at the kilowatt hours figure on them, and it's all very clearly displayed, as you say, and you can make direct comparisons. You haven't got to understand what that means to you, but if one says 80 kilowatt hours and one says 120 kilowatt hours for a similar product, that's clearly a clear choice in front of you as to which one is going to cost you the least.
Absolutely, Mark. But I would also add to that to say that you need to be careful about which wash cycles you are using on a washing machine, as some are much more energy intensive than others. So get into that manual and have a read and ask for advice around that. The other one I'd pick up on is kettles, which are obviously the most efficient way of making a cup of tea, but only put in the water that you need to boil.
Yes, absolutely.
Otherwise, you're just throwing energy away.
And a very simple tip, and we do it in our house now. I worked out how much water it takes for 2 cups of tea, for my wife and I, and we now have a little felt tip pen mark on the window on the kettle, and it's extremely easy now just to make sure that I only boil 2 cups of tea and precisely that amount of water. And you can obviously have as many levels as you like up a kettle doing that. So it's a very simple way of making sure that very simple way of saving energy is something anyone in the household can do automatically.
That's a great way, Mark. For myself personally, I just pour the water into the mug that I'm going to use and then pour that into the kettle
There's another
as
way,
many
yeah.
times as I need. So lots of different ways to do it, but lots of ways of just making sure you're using the exact amount of energy that you use or need to use for keeping cups of tea. And of course, drinking hot drinks throughout the winter will also keep your body warm as we reach the autumn and colder weather.
True.
Mark, you've been absolutely talking my language today and hopefully getting it across to all our audiences that are going to be listening into this. Thank you so much. We will be talking again. Thanks to all of those listening out there today. Please do visit the Council's Climate Emergency Inspire website at www.cheshireWestandchester.gov.uk/tackle climate for lots of more tips to help you cut your energy use. You can also add your own ideas to the Your Stories section of the site, and we would be fascinated to hear what people are doing out there and hopefully can share those tips with others.